or respond and to just be quiet. And there was this deep peace I experienced that I had never felt before. But I think the biggest realization for me after that first 5-month immersion experience, it came pretty early on. I was a few weeks into my hike, actually on a mountain that's on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee called Roan Mountain. Has anyone ever here been to Roan? It's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's not too far away to go visit. You have 12 miles of ridgeline hiking going in and out of the forest. And when you come out on the ridge, you look around, and I was up there at sunset, and I was the only one up there. And I could see the distant ridge lines, and I could feel the breeze, and now there were wildflowers. I saw those. I could hear the birds, and it was just so beautiful. It was so beautiful, and I felt so lucky to be there. And then for the first time in my life, I realized that I was a part of it. And growing up, I always thought that nature was beautiful, but usually it was looking out a window. Like it was out there. It was separate. I never saw myself as a part of it until I walked the trail. And then on that ridge, I just realized it really doesn't matter how I look at it. I can view it spiritually, I can view it scientifically, biologically, but like, this is me. Like, I am a part of everything that I could see, and it made me feel like beautiful, and it made me feel capable, and it made me feel a little bit wild. And I did the thing, I yelled on the mountain. I was a crazy person, right? I was just like, ah! Like, I was overtaken with that sense of belonging. And I've now read and realized and heard that in most indigenous cultures, there's not even a word for nature, because they never saw it as something that was out there or something that was separate. It was a concept that did not exist until recently, because in the past we were all connected. So after hiking, I got a job, and my mom was relieved, but I realized she's very relieved. I realized through working that job that really for me, my white blaze and my vision and my direction was wanting to help other people get outside. Wanting to help other people realize that they were a part of nature. And so after working actually at a museum in Virginia for 2 years, I moved back home to North Carolina, and I started my own hiking company. And once I started my hiking company, I had less time to hike. And around that time, I also got married. And I don't know if you know this, but that changes things, right? Marriage changes things, especially when you marry someone who has different interests and different passions than what you have. And my husband, everyone asks, like, well, was he a hiker when you met? And we both have the same response, which is like, well, he thought he was. You know, like, he thought he was a hiker. But he would go on these casual day hikes or maybe camp in a national park. And he told me on our very first date that he had no interest in ever doing a long trail. And I said, that's great. Just so you know, I really want to hike the Appalachian Trail one more time. And he said, that's great. And as we dated and got engaged, and as I started my business, we actually came up with a plan where, because I wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail one more time, and because he was a school teacher, he agreed to take the summer off and help me down the trail. And I thought with his help, I could do it in a 2-month period. Now, when I began hiking, I heard about these records, people trying to go very quickly, be the fastest person on the trail, and I always thought they were crazy, right? Who would want to do it? How could you appreciate it? But the more I got into it, the more I realized there is something very beautiful about moving efficiently down the trail through nature. And I always loved pushing my body. That had always just been a part of who I was. And then I think the thing that really tipped it over was, like, I had only heard about men trying for these records. Like, it was only dudes. It was only guys going for records. And so, you know, part of me was like, there should be a women's record too. And there's not one. So as long as we really don't mess this up, like, we should be successful. We could set a women's record. So with my husband's help, we were actually married 12 days before we started. I do not recommend it as a honeymoon. The 12 days after we got married, he helped me on the Appalachian Trail. I finished in 57 days, which is an average of 38 miles a day. And at the end, I was so grateful to have been on the trail, and I was so grateful to have shared the experience with my husband. I do not think he would say that. He actually said when we got to the end, we touched the last rock, and the first thing he said was, "We are never doing that again." Never. But the problem was, I walked down the mountain, and I also felt a little disappointed, or like something was missing. I couldn't even put my finger on it at first. I just knew something felt off, and it was weird. Like, I had done other trails. I'd never felt this way at the end. And we went home and went back to work, and I was like, what is it? What is it? Why does this not feel complete? And I asked myself, did I go too fast? Did I miss out on the experience? Did I not appreciate the environment? And I don't think that was it. There was actually something about that experience that was more immersive in nature. It was less immersive in the community. And I did miss that. But every day I was up with the sun. Every day I walked till the sun went down. I saw far more wildlife. I didn't go into town as much. Like, I was in the woods the whole time. And I loved that. And then it finally kind of clicked that the feeling I was experiencing was regret or frustration, and it was with myself. Because I knew, I felt good at the end of the record. I knew I probably could have done it a little faster. But really what I was frustrated with is I realized that when I decided to go out and try for the record, I thought my best was good enough for a woman's record. And I predicated that off playing sports and being really active and having 2 older brothers. And guys have the advantage of being faster and stronger, right? I mean, I couldn't sprint as fast as a lot of guys who were the same athletic ability. I couldn't bench press as much as they could. But then I went out on the trail and I realized that at no point in a 2,000-mile journey was someone going to ask you to sprint or lift weights. Like, it was just not a part of it. And so much of being successful at endurance is learning how to crawl. It really is. Just not feeling like you can keep going and doing that shuffle of one foot in front of the other. And I was really good at that. I was good at the endurance shuffle. And it finally hit me that before I even started, told myself that a really good women's record would be 10 days behind the men's mark. And when I finished exactly there, 10 days behind the men's mark, because my brain decided that's what I should do before I even started. And I never gave my body the opportunity to see what it was capable of. I wasn't even really that into these record things, and now I'm like, but I did it wrong, I did it the wrong way. And at first that was fine, and we were working and having other adventures, but then the catalyst that really changed it all was when my husband and I started talking about babies, right? Starting a family. That was something we both had always wanted, but now I'm having this realization as a woman. It's like, hold on. If we're able to start a family, my body and my time will no longer be my own in the same way. And I want that. I hope for that. I am praying for that. But before we go there, it's now really clear to me that I want and I need to find out what my body can do on the trail. So I asked my husband if he would help me one more time. And he had a great response. This is really, for me, one of the moments that sort of defines our marriage in a really positive way. He said, if you're asking me, do I want to help you? The answer is no. He goes, this is not how I like to spend my summer vacation. But he immediately followed that up and he said, but if it's that important to you, then you know I'm going to be behind you. And it was important. And so I trained and we went back. We started in Maine this time. We were going to work our way down to Georgia. Why do you think we did that? It's not downhill, not much anyway. Part of it was the weather, part of it was wanting to hike home, and then the biggest reason was Maine and New Hampshire, the toughest two states. And I wanted to get through the hardest part in the beginning, but it was so hard. I started up there and started straight off with trying to do 40, 45, 50-mile days. And up there, the mountains are really steep and they're made of granite. And I was going down on this hard rock, and it was day 3, and all of a sudden I felt pain in my left leg and pain in my right leg. And by the end of the day, I had full-blown shin splints, which I had had a lot of overuse injuries, but I had never had shin splints. And they were the worst. Going uphill was unbearable. Downhill, my legs would just buckle at times from the pain. I would collapse. And so I would hike to the top of a mountain and then turn and scramble downhill backwards because it was more bearable. But when I got the shin splints, I expected hard things, right? I could work through this. I just needed to get to Vermont, and I needed good weather to get there. It was the 3rd week of June. I should have had great weather. But when I hit New Hampshire, I had 24 hours of solid rain and fog and high winds, and then that was followed by a sleet storm. So going through the sleet storm, even though I had great gear, I had food, but I was on day 10 of 40, 45, 50-mile days with shin splints, and I was just depleted. And my body very quickly got hypothermic, and the only reason I was able to continue is because my husband hiked in, set up a tent, brought me dry clothes, more food, literally gave me clothes off his body so that I could keep going. And I thought, okay, we've made it through the worst. I just need to get to Vermont. And I walked into Vermont, and as soon as I got to Vermont, I got sick. Like really sick. And that's never fun, right? Being sick at home, that's not good when you've got all the People magazines and the bathroom's 5 feet away. But being sick on the trail is really not fun. When you are running into the bushes every 5 minutes, you're becoming depleted, dehydrated, and in my mind, I quit. It was just over. And I finally stumbled out to the next road crossing. My husband was waiting for me. I had tears streaming down my face. And as soon as I saw him, I looked at him and I said, "We are done. We're done." Not you and me, he knew that. But we are done with the trail.